On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
Now Louis, and by the way I am recording, Louis, I'm not quite sure how we start the new year proper. What do you think about going back to Wally in Stratford?
No, we can't do that. People found it embarrassing.
Why did people find it embarrassing? They went there.
Because it was Class A cringe.
It was what?
Class A cringe.
And what is it you young people say in these circumstances?
Oh no, cringe.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Lilith, Archie and I have absolutely no idea what that meant. But we've put our heads together and we think that the most probable interpretation of what Louis said was that yes, he thinks it'd be a great idea if we start the new season of On the Track with another visit to Stratford-upon-Avon with Wally, the comedy Rhinoceros. He starts as he means to go on. He shows his disdain for multinational fast food outlets. As a perissodactyl, he is, of course, a herbivore. And he makes friends with the traffic warden. And then he sees a guided tour going around Stratford telling everybody about William Shakespeare. And so, without a by your leave, he joins them. Oh, excuse me. Yes, Hennis, what is it? Do you think we could add a brass band to that soundtrack? Yes, Hennis, I don't see why not. And as we disprove Louis' assertion that chicks are not turned on by comedy rhinoceri because they obviously are, we're going to leave Wally and his newfound friends for this episode, and I'm very pleased to tell you there's enough footage left for at least one more amazing introduction from Wally the comedy rhinoceros. Now, in my opinion, that is the best introduction that we have done all season.
I really like the old credits.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, happy 2022. Now we've got that out of the way, let's start the new season proper. And I thought a good way of starting the new season proper was to talk to Richard and Carl about expeditions they want to do next. So, where do you want to go next, Richard, and why?
Oh, goodness me, there's a question. There's so many places. There's so many places I want to go, and we have such limited funds. It really annoys me when you hear about people winning the lottery and they spend it all on fancy cars and big houses, and they're broke within a couple of years. What I could do with that kind of money. One of the things I want to do is a series of expeditions looking for the world's biggest crocodiles. I want to go to Orissa in Western India. I want to go to Agusan Marsh in the Philippines. I want to go to southern New Guinea, where there's supposed to be a giant sacred crocodile. There's several rivers in Australia I want to check out that have monster crocodiles in them.
I came across reports in Borneo of
yeah,
enormous
Borneo
crocodiles.
as well. And also parts of East Africa, like Lake Chamo in Ethiopia, and I want to go after Gustav as well in Lake Tanganyika, and see if we can do something maybe with drones or those devices. You can run a laser pointer along something and it will measure it, or you can get pictures from above with drones. Casting footprints as well to gauge size, and slide marks when they've gone into the water. That's something that I really want to do. I want to go to the lakes of Siberia, to Lake Chany in southern Siberia, where 19 people have been killed by something in that lake that rams the boats and grabs them and eats them, and it's reported to be about 30 feet long and serpentine, and bits of its victims float to the shore. The local people round it say, we've asked for a government investigation, and the government has just given them the brush off, saying people are getting drunk and falling in the water and drowning, when they're actually being attacked by something which tears them to shreds and rams boats. And there are similar stories from Lake Labanika in the east of Siberia and Lake Vorota. They don't have villages around them like Chany does, but they have nomads that sometimes camp there, and they say the things in that lake have overturned rafts and eaten people, and they've chased deer into the lake and it's come up and grabbed them and pulled them under. Some sort of huge fish again. It's the only thing that makes any sense. And there were people from Moscow University back in the 50s and 60s that visited some of these lakes and saw things that they said they've got a great dorsal fin and a back and something with a wide head. There's one account of two of them being near this dead tree that was in the water, and two scientists, and they saw this thing moving closer and closer towards them, as if it was stalking them through the water, getting closer and closer to this tree that they were on. Recently in Lake Labanika, some scientists got sonar readings of something huge in the lake. It's a very deep lake, but I'd love to go there and go with underwater cameras and baiting, particularly to Lake Chany, which sounds fantastic. Also, I want to go back and look for the thylacine again. I want to go back and look for the orang pendek again. I want to go back and look for the Mongolian deathworm again, because the Gobi is such a fantastic place. I want to do more with the giant anaconda. I'd love to go to Bhutan or central China to look for the Yeti. You name it. I could sit here and talk all night of stuff that I want to do, and it's all down to funding. If I had the funding, I'd be doing 4 or 5 expeditions a year.
Yeah.
How about you,
Carl, what do you want?
Well, I would really like to go back to Borneo, just because I come across such interesting leads last time. We've got reports of what are described as glowing ground birds, which upon further investigation turned out to not be glowing at all. They were just iridescent. They had a strong iridescent plumage. And I wondered, obviously they're the wrong side of the Wallace line, but I wondered whether or not they might actually be representatives of the birds of paradise, an actual Bornean species of bird of paradise. Obviously there is data that goes against that, but there's some brightly coloured bird there that we need to know what it is really. And there was also reports of snakes over 30 feet. Our guide Innes in Ulucamanis said that he could guarantee us, if we went in the right season, to find snakes over 30 feet. What else was there? Oh yeah, and large crocodiles, giant crocodiles. Lots of reports of giant crocodiles all over Borneo. There was one that was supposed to be white. A giant white crocodile. I didn't take that necessarily too seriously because albino animals, mind you saying that, if anything's going to survive as an albino, it would be a crocodile, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But yeah, Borneo would be a really good place to go back to, I think, and I'd also like to go to Papua New Guinea.
And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. You thought that I had forgotten or for some reason was going to self-censor. But no. Here we are again, and I'm returning to the story of what happened pretty well 19 years ago when we were up at Bolam Lake in Northumberland. The story of the Bolam Bigfoot, part 2. Well, after my early morning start and our large breakfast, we went back up to the lake in my old Jaguar with me and Richard Freeman and Graham and John Fuller, and we got up there and we liaised with a whole bunch of people from the Twilight World's Paranormal Research Group and Avalon Skies, and we did what I always try to do while we're investigating investigating a series of sightings. We spoke to some of the original witnesses, and we did what I always like to call a Crime Watch style reenactment of the original sighting. Crime Watch being a British TV show which does much the same, I think, as America's Most Wanted, and I'm sure there's something similar in Australia, but I don't know it. So we went through the footsteps of as many of the witnesses as we could manage that day. We had 4 different witnesses come up, and we carefully managed to keep them apart so they didn't corroborate each other's evidence, and they didn't influence what they were saying, but they all said much the same. They said that when they saw this Bigfoot type creature, it was very quiet. They felt it was looking at them, and they felt that it was something otherworldly rather than being something of flesh and blood. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's what they said at the time. And something very strange started to happen. There were 4 cars worth of people in that car park, and we all had enormous amounts of power failure. 2 of the car's batteries went. All the mobile phones from all 4 of the cars had to be recharged. All the walkie-talkies we had, the batteries went, and laptop batteries went. I didn't actually own a laptop back in those days, so that didn't affect me. But all the electronic equipment that you could think of, even down to the little electric kettle thing that Graham had brought along with him in order to be able to make coffee through the cigarette holder of my car. Everything went wrong. And it wasn't just us, it was for all 4 cars. Now, I'm sure that people who are watching this, who have read reasonably widely in books of Forteana, will have heard about how people on ghost hunts often encounter electromagnetic phenomena. I'd heard about it, but I'd never, ever, ever expected it to happen to me. The day went on, the witnesses went home, and the paranormal groups, who had spent the days photographing, cataloguing and measuring as much of the forest as we could find, and going to all the locations where the witnesses had explained that they had had their encounters, and we were all packing up ready to go. Me and John Fuller and 2 others were sitting on the bonnet of my car having cigarettes, because in those days I still smoked, as I've already explained, even though I find it mildly embarrassing to admit so these days. And it was getting dark, and then it suddenly became incredibly quiet. And I heard the boom, ba-boom, ba-boom coming out of the forest again. I'd never really heard anything like it. My earlier comparison of it to parts of Dark Side of the Moon is what I thought at the time. But I tell you something very peculiar. Some years ago, a TV company with whom we're working sent me a copy of a Bigfoot documentary that they'd made that they thought might interest me. And in it, it included something that I'd heard about but never actually heard before. The knocking noises that come out of the forest when people bang on trees with sticks in order to try and communicate with the Bigfoot. I have no idea what those knocking noises are, but the knocking noises on this film were pretty well 100% what I'd heard both that morning and that evening. But of course I didn't know that. The knocking noises, the booming heartbeat noises, whatever you want to call them, continued, and then suddenly total silence, and then the birds started up. The crows, whom I had heard greeting the dawn some hours before, started up again, making their infernal squawking noises. And I don't think I've ever heard quite such a loud array of corvidae. This is, of course, nothing even slightly paranormal. This is just to do with the fact that there was a large amount of crows and their relatives all roosting in the same area. And I suggest, I would hazard a guess, that there's probably more than one species of crow there, and they were out trying to outdo each other for territorial reasons. And then it happened. We were so keen to make sure that we didn't lose power in our car battery. We had the engine on and the headlights running, and we were occasionally putting our feet on the engine to make it turn over faster, which we hoped would ensure that the solenoid, I think it's called the solenoid, would continue to charge the battery. All very well and good, and it's a damn good job we did, because, as I said, 4 of us plus 2 other people standing were gazing into the forest, feeling mildly deflated. We hadn't seen anything, and then suddenly we saw something that looked like a giant, very thin humanoid creature running from right to left, and then a second or so later from left to right, across a part of the forest, a clearing that had been illuminated by my headlights. I've tried to explain this to people in the years that have taken place since, and I've never done a very good job. But it wasn't like we saw a solid object. It was like a figure cut out of nothingness. It was like, rather than there being a solid flesh and blood, black coloured humanoid thing running across and back, it was like the image of one had somehow been cut out of reality. If I have to say In fact, I've been saying this for the last 19 years. The nearest analogy I can give is with one of the running robots in the game Doom 2, which always I found really rather freaky. And if you can imagine something like this, but silhouetted against the darkness, or silhouetted against what bits of the forest were illuminated by the headlights of a Jaguar XJ6, I think you're probably going to get the best analogy that I can give you. Looking back, it still freaks me out, and it's still probably the weirdest thing ever to have happened to me, and that is against some very, very stiff competition. Now, just in case you're wondering, of the other people, like I said, there were 6 of us. 4 of us saw it, 2 of us didn't. And we were all staring exactly the same direction, and we all had the same sort of focal length of our gaze. Try and explain that one, guys. What I do need to tell you about is what happened immediately afterwards. But there isn't time in this episode. Please forgive me, but we're going to have to hold that, plus the theory that Richard and I extrapolated from the whole thing, over until the next time. I've just noticed something very peculiar on the monitor here. Look at this. Look at my hand. It appears to be so much bigger than it should be. Here's my other hand, but that hand seems much more elongated and stretched out. And I'm sure that it is an artifact of the digital recording process. But doesn't it look a bit like this? Look at this. This is one of the famous Cottingley fairy photographs from the 1920s. And it is the one that has always intrigued me most, because look at the hand of the little girl. It looks all stretched out, just like mine is here. Does that mean I'm about to see a fairy? Or does that mean that 100 years ago this little girl had access to a cheap eBay camera? Well, Archie thinks it was a proper fairy, and that one of the fairies that lives down by the compost heap is just about to come in the sitting room and see us. I'm not so sure. I'd be interested to know what your opinions are. Please tell me in the thingy-bobby things below.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell. Otherwise you won't be told when there's a new show to watch. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it? And so, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of the first episode in the new season. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to say a big thank you to Carl and to Richard and to Graham and to Wally the Comedy Rhinoceros and to Louis, who've all done their inimitable thing to make this show come together. I truly don't know what I'd do without you guys. Thank you so much. I'd also like to say a big thank you to Miss Maxine and to Sarah and to all the other people, but for whom this could not be done. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't be sad. It's the end of the first show of the series, but you can always go back because there are over 100 series on YouTube you can look at. Over 100 episodes, on YouTube you can look at, and my old friend Mark Rains is going through them and writing up the contents of each one for his show, for his Facebook page, and I'll put a link to that in the blurb below. But if you are just totally bereft of the fact there's no new content coming in, fear not. 7 more days. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday afternoon at 3. Every Saturday afternoon at 3, there's me with half an hour of weird shit, hard science and sorry alchemy or whatever you want to call it, plus me messing about, and yes, there are glove puppets, which is always a good thing. So until next Saturday afternoon, at the worst, you've only got 7 days to wait, because if you're there seeing me, I'll be. And remember, I do this for thee, who each time tries to join in with me and gets the timing wrong when I say I'm going to be seeing you.